What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the BallGame podcast. I'm Matt.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Ortiz.
Ortiz is back on the couch, on the casting couch today for another podcast with us. I'm very excited to have you, Ortiz. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, it was
One
my
of the
pleasure.
OG 5, and we're going to be talking about a topic that you actually did with us quite a while ago. In top 5 duos in the NBA, we're going to be talking about a potential lose-lose trade this offseason between the Knicks and the Timberwolves, as the Knicks looked horrendous against one of the best teams in the NBA, if not the best team in the NBA, in a historic performance, might I add, of the Boston Celtics, and whether their style of basketball is good or bad for the NBA at this point. Aside from that, we're going to talk about the newest Kawhi Leonard news, which might have just blown up the NBA world.
Oh boy, yeah.
What a crazy Chris Haynes bomb that was.
Yeah.
I mean, Trunk sent it in the chat, and he started talking about it because he read it obviously before he sent it. So he kind of explained a little bit. So I was like, damn, that's crazy. And I was just ready to move on. And then I was like, you know what, let me click on this thing. So I clicked on it and read the whole thing. And I was just reading the whole thing like this.
Yeah.
I was just genuinely shocked. That really threw me for a loop. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk about that and hear your guys'
Let's
stuff.
honestly just lead off with that.
Yeah,
We
can
might
start
as
with
well.
that.
Let's lead off with that
that's
because
cool.
the rest of it is all kind of just going to flow into one another.
Let me
so,
do a hook just in case we want to make this into a TikTok. A trainer with the Clippers who was connected to Kawhi Leonard since his days in college is suing them for many, many, many things. So, what are our quick thoughts on it?
Kawhi has obviously been one of the bigger what-ifs over the last few NBA seasons. And for a situation like this to come out about potentially the most injured NBA player we've seen over the last few years, I mean, it kind of explains why the man just continuously over and over and over again gets injured now. And look, I wish the best to Kawhi. I wish the best to the trainer if these statements are true, if these charges are true and stuff like that that's getting brought to the courts. I wish the best to the both of them. But I fear this could very well be the end of Kawhi Leonard's career. Is that where we're headed in that direction? And it's scary, but it's the truth of the matter. And it seems like it's something that could very well be in the books, because how do you come back from this now? How do you play for that organization again now that this stuff has hit the light, has hit social media, and blown up effectively? So, yeah, man, this was quite the bomb.
Man, I lost my train of thought. I was ready to
I'll
go,
go.
and then you added "this was the bomb" and threw me off.
Sorry.
No, I'll let you gather your thoughts.
Yeah, that was the
I mean, yeah, it really was so, because not just the injury stuff, which I'll touch on after, but it goes back to when he was with the Spurs, and it's a whole tampering issue too, that it's just how did the NBA let that go? You know what I mean? It was because there were some speculations about that already, obviously, that'll come with any big name going anywhere, you know what I mean? Shohei goes to the Dodgers, I'm sure people were speculating some type of, they had some type of prior relationship, you know what I mean, before it actually happened. So it was just so much. I mean, it said in the article, shout out to Chris Haynes for dropping the article, but it said in the article that when he was on the Raptors for that 1 year, there were Clippers representatives or whatnot at 75 to 80% of the games. How do you let that slide for a guy who we know is a pending free agent? You know what I mean? When guys are going to go into free agency, I feel like you got to keep a extra eye on them so something like that doesn't happen. You know what I mean?
I think that this was a multi-year plan. That's the craziest part about this. There's one thing to tamper a year before a guy goes into free agency. This was a multi-year plan. I don't think I've ever seen anything.
Multi-team, man.
Yeah.
It went through multiple teams. That's
And we
Next
always
level.
Even a college team, like this was not necessarily included the San Diego State Aztecs, but they brought a guy in that was related to, not related family-wise, but had a relationship with Kawhi back in his college days.
Yeah.
And he actually was his personal trainer. Like, Kawhi hired him to be his personal trainer. So
Yeah.
he was Kawhi's trainer throughout his career with the Spurs.
Leading up to the NBA draft, yes. And then he got the job with the Clippers a few years before Kawhi.
No, the same year.
They were talking to him and making him asking
Illegally,
for
yes.
intel on Kawhi's like injury history
you're
and
right.
stuff, and meeting with him. And then once Kawhi signed is when they signed him, and based on what he's suing them for, basically kicked him to the curb and said, "You're only here because of Kawhi, but you don't have a role here." And they, you know, like, I mean, based on what it said, like discriminated him out. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like, so it's just
Like verbally harassed
Yeah.
him too, apparently. Like it's just,
it's a lot, man. It's a lot.
it's heavy stuff. It really is like very heavy shit. Like this is,
Because there was always so much with the Kawhi injuries that I feel like as basketball fans in this community, we all felt like we didn't know everything
Yes.
because dating back to the Spurs stuff, it was just so murky because I remember back in those days, one of the thoughts that I feel like all of us agreed on whenever we talked about it was, how do you turn against that organization? You know what I mean? Like they were the class of the NBA at that time.
sorry.
I'm sorry, Luka just threw a pass behind his head
a ridiculously
into the corner.
stupid pass. like,
I can't believe that just happened.
Oh, I need to see the replay before I continue.
yeah. Here you go.
Oh,
Just typical
Normal.
Luka things.
Typical
yeah.
Luka stuff, but you know.
that's not fair. But yeah, we were all thinking, how do you go against and have a bad relationship with this organization? Because at the time, the Spurs were the class of the NBA. In terms of being a classy, well-run organization, they were in a tier of their own at that time. So we were all so shocked by it. But I mean, clearly the Kawhi was right about his injury. Like I said, Chilltown Hoop, shout out to him. What he said, this is not an injury. This is a condition that Kawhi has. So obviously it was more serious, and he was right to be getting a second opinion on it at that time. It stinks that it made the relationship between the Spurs wonky, and I think there's more that goes into it on that end too. And then the way that there were just numerous times in that article where the Clippers rushed him back when, you know, we as fans were all complaining, obviously, during that time, like, why does this guy have to load manage? Like, just play and do your job. But in the end, Kawhi was always right because
Yes.
these injuries were more serious
This is a chronic condition.
than we were led to believe. And, like, you know, I don't know if there's any podcast clips, but I know back in those days, me personally, I was tough on Kawhi. I know you always rode or died for Kawhi,
I was so for Kawhi.
but I
And
know
this just makes me even
yeah,
more
I
of
mean,
a fan
I know
now.
me and
Like,
Trunks used to always go at you about Kawhi and, you know, saying he doesn't love the game and whatnot because he wasn't playing and was holding out in a way. But I mean, I'm sorry, Kawhi. Like, I didn't know this was this bad. Like, if all this stuff gets confirmed and it's true, then I mean,
how many guys do you hear about having degenerative knee issues?
You know?
Like, it's like, how do you even play through that?
I mean,
it's-
even like
you
And
don't.
for him to play at the level that he has been playing when he does play, played what, 68 games last season and was one of the best players in the NBA once again while dealing with these issues, coming off another season that ended in multiple surgeries prematurely. Like, this is insane. This is nuts.
insane.
I don't think we've ever seen a guy as frequently injured as he is. I don't think we've seen a guy deal with injuries the way he has. I think it's nuts. And the only guy that I recall in sports that had a degenerative knee issue that I remember hearing about was Todd Gurley. And Todd Gurley, after that information came out, I mean, the dude was 26 when he basically hit the wall and started being ass. And when he started being ass, I mean, shit, he was one of the best running backs in the NFL, if not the best running back in the NFL.
he was the best running back in the NFL.
Exactly, for a multi-year stretch, and then 26, 27 hits, and this dude's knee is cooked. And it's very similar to the Kawhi situation in terms of the injury from what I was reading about. So, yeah, it's some stuff, man.
Yeah, and just a look on it from the Clippers as an organization, as their
Oh
standpoint.
boy.
How the hell can you do this to not only the person that you're suing and, well, not suing, but one, abusing?
Yes.
They were abusing this dude, not obviously physically, but mentally and emotionally. But to Kawhi Leonard, who was supposed to be your guy, that's your
savior.
Savior,
Your
of
savior.
the franchise.
Yes.
And especially in a year like this, where for as long as my basketball life has been going, the Clippers have always been the little brother of the Lakers playing in the Staples Center. This was a huge year for them, opening up a brand new arena, which looks amazing.
Looks sick.
And
Oh my God.
it's all overshadowed
You
now.
ruined it.
It's
ruined
all
it.
overshadowed.
It's done. The Clippers are back to being the laughing stock of the NBA.
It's not even a laughing stock matter. It's matter of
No,
what the
it's-
hell is
It's
going on.
It's
here.
I
not
just
even a
mean
it's not laughing
I know,
stock
but
anymore.
what I
It's-
mean is just they're the bottom of the barrel in
they're
terms of
poverty,
NBA organization.
not actually.
I texted in the chat. It's what
But-
I've been saying about the Jets the past few weeks, but there's a lot of factors that go into evaluating sports, analyzing sports, which is what we do. But at the end of the day, organizational incompetence trumps all.
Yep.
And after the Steve Ballmer era, to bounce back the way you did with the
Well, the Donald Sterling era.
sorry, after the
and that
Donald
shit.
Sterling era, to bounce back in this new Steve Ballmer era, and
He seemed to be awesome from all prior to this.
I guess he really took the whole. We have to
all
win at all
in,
costs.
yeah.
He
and
really
just
took that shit to
he
heart.
was aggressive. He built a great team. He built a competitor. You bring in the most coveted free agent of like that year, but also one of the more coveted free agents of all time.
Yes.
I mean, it was LeBron levels of a story. Obviously not like. Obviously, LeBron's LeBron, but just the way it was covered because this guy just came off a championship run, and he wanted to go to your team, and to treat him like that, it's just
because
it's ridiculous.
tampering to get him on the roster is one thing,
Yes.
but to then neglect him as a human being and force him to play through these injuries, because that timetable with his ACL in the article stated it was 730 days.
That's nuts.
Granted, it is a very long time for an ACL recovery, but
That's
it was
2 full years.
But granted, it was probably more than just the ACL that he needed to
his
recover.
knees.
Clearly, it was
destroyed.
degenerative knee.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
that's the
like,
problem.
His knee
So-
needed more time to
destroyed.
heal.
So how do you heal an ACL, which is typically 10 months, 8 to 10 months at minimum, with the degenerative knee issue in a year? Like, how is that even possible? So, yeah, it's nuts. And one other thing, and this will be my closing thoughts at least, this leaves me with the biggest what if. What if Kawhi never left? What if Kawhi stayed in Toronto?
His knee probably
'Cause
still would have been the same.
But my thing is they took care of him there.
Of course
They
did. 'Cause
put that man as, they looked at him as the savior
right
of the
way.
franchise.
Yes, the way
And
the Clippers
treated
should've.
him that way.
the way the Clippers should have.
And, it really begs the question of what ends up happening if Kawhi stays in Toronto. And I wonder, where is Kawhi, physically at this point if he were to stay in Toronto? And, man, wow, just heavy shit. And I wish the best to Kawhi.
Yes,
And
especially
and to Randy Shelton, that's the
And
The
to Randy
trainer,
Shelton.
the guy's
yes.
name. But
So,
I mean, like you said in the beginning, you corrected yourself, but when you said he had a relationship with this guy, but that's family, dude.
Yes.
You know what I mean? This is a guy that it goes back to, like you said, Kawhi's college days. This is a guy who's been in his life for a long time, and again, he was the reason that he came to the Clippers. You know what I mean? He was a part of the same way Paul George was a part of the deal. The only way Kawhi would come is if Paul George came. It seemed like it was the same way for the trainer, Randy Shelton. So it's just a bad situation for everyone involved. And I'll close it off with this. Another thing I said in the group chat and to you, Ortiz, when we were texting, but we need the Kawhi documentary expeditiously, dude.
yes.
I mean, this is
We
this
need the
is
title
something
and
that could alter the sports world. Maybe more people speak up on experiences like this. I don't know. Again, we don't. How do I work? There's so much shit that goes on behind closed doors. At
we'll
the end of
never
the day, most of all we see of these guys in sports is the 2.5 hours when we watch them play. Obviously, we see more and more now in the social media era, but for the most part, there's just so much shit within these organizations that goes on behind closed doors. So maybe this starts a wave of people who have had similar experiences, whether it's players or trainers and medical staff, having to be quiet when they know something about a player's injury. There's so many guys whose careers were cut short by injuries who maybe if they stayed out longer or were treated differently, their careers could have been different. So it's just such an interesting situation, especially coming from a guy who was already just one of the more interesting case studies in NBA history. It adds so much to that. So I think if no one else is going to do it, I'll pitch the idea to someone 30 for 30 or whoever, but there needs to be a documentary about this.
Or
when it's
Netflix Untold.
Yeah, when it's all said and done with Kawhi, there has to be some type of, film about this.
Yes.
This is really, interesting stuff that you don't always see in the sports world, stories like this. This is a one of a kind story. So I'll end with the question of this. Do we think this is the end for Kawhi? Do we think he ever suits up again?
I mean, we saw what he can do on still, obviously, this injury is a lingering thing. And like you said, it's not even an injury, it's a condition. It's more than an injury. He's been dealing with this, obviously, for a long time, and he's been still able to perform up to a level that...
An elite standard.
Yeah. He's been one of the top 10, 15 players in last season, at least, for sure. And I think he can continue to play at that level. It's just a matter of when he can play at that level. I can't see him playing for too long after this, but I still think he still has somewhat of a career after this.
So I'm not even more so concerned about Kawhi getting back on the court, which obviously we don't know when that happens. I hope he ends up healthy, fully healthy, if he ever does think about coming back on the court. I'm more in the thought process of, does he ever even want to suit up for the Clippers ever again?
No.
Because of what just came out.
I can't see
Obviously, if this hadn't come out, we'd probably feel a little differently. Maybe he continues to push it off because he doesn't want to suit up for this team, knowing what he's gone through already. I truly do wonder now if a team is even out there willing to trade for Kawhi Leonard. If he is willing to continue his basketball career from this point forward. That's the most important part of this whole thing. And how good can he be when he comes back, if he comes back? So, look, I think at this point, if Kawhi's ever going to play again, it definitely is not for the Clippers. That is where I'm at.
Yeah. Like, you guys just both made completely different points, but that's what this situation is. There's so much that goes into it. And I think both of your points play a factor in it. And my question is, how much of this did Kawhi know?
Yes.
What were they keeping from him that they were also, keeping the trainer from, so
He had to have known at least some of this was about to come out. Like,
I don't know. This is a
bomb.
No, this is
a bomb.
This is like some of the biggest NBA news we've had in like years.
Yeah.
Like legitimately in years.
And like you said, Ortiz, he could still play at that level the last time we've seen of him. And again, we've seen him come back from injury time and time again and be able to get right back to that level without really missing a beat. But then again, it's like, we haven't seen you play a full season without ending the season injured in almost 5 years now. And do you want to keep doing that to yourself and having surgeries and all these things? But then again, like you mentioned, the human side of it, when like you dealt with a situation. This is a terrible situation for the people involved, for Kawhi and for the trainer. It's like, this is really bad, and it's just like I can't see him suiting up for the Clippers again. I mean,
done.
If this stuff is all true, it's just like, how do you want to work for that organization. You know, imagine like us working at our job, and our job, you know, puts us in harm's way, and like the accusations say, and what the lawsuit is for, like abuse someone who is the reason why I'm here. You know what I mean? Why I'm working for this company or whatnot. So there's just so much that goes into it. I'm honestly leaning on the side of we don't see Kawhi suit up again. I'm not going to lie, but obviously, you know, if Kawhi wants to continue playing, and the game of basketball wants Kawhi to be playing, obviously.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying he should or shouldn't retire, but man, this is a big obstacle to bounce back from, not just the injury, but mentally it's a lot.
Especially if he's getting hit by all this news, and like you said, if he knew nothing,
Right? Like,
what the hell was
again,
going
what
on?
did he know? What did he know? So
Like,
yeah,
did he know he was supposed to be out for 2 years with his ACL tear? Like, what did Kawhi know?
yeah.
At the end of the day?
This is like we keep saying, it's just so interesting. Like, again, we saw, like, it sucks for everyone involved. The Clippers, like we mentioned, are a joke of an organization, but as a fan of the game, as a student of the game, a guy who, you know, looks into all of these things in NBA history, not just the stuff on the court, but all of these theories and things that happen within organizations and players' lives, like, something that I feel like all three of us really all look into. We watch Mike Korzemba videos growing up and things of that nature. It's just so
high roller.
Right. It's just so interesting when you really dive into the NBA like this, and again, the behind the scenes stuff. So, I mean, remember when The Last Dance came out? It wasn't a situation like this, obviously, but what I'm saying is it was a way to see a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that we don't always see. So, again, I don't want to use the word excited, but because of the magnitude of the situation, but I'm just so intrigued by it, and waiting to see what comes out next, and, you know, who the next person to speak on it is. I wonder
Oh my God! The Clippers release a statement.
Right. I wonder what Steve Ballmer's going to say. I wonder if we hear from Kawhi. Like, you know, you would think you have to speak up after this, but again, we saw in San Antonio, he was very, very quiet amidst a situation where his name was in the headlights day after day. So, yeah, man, I
really wonder, were they giving this man fucking horse tranquilizers before games and shit? Like, what were they doing? So,
yeah, this was a lot.
All right, shifting gears to a definitely more positive note. But unfortunately for me and Ortiz, as Knicks fans, maybe not so positive. The New York Knicks got absolutely smacked around, tossed around, beaten, battered, and every adjective in between and under the sun. 132-109 to the best team in the NBA and the reigning, defending, undisputed champion Boston Celtics, who set an NBA record, or tied an NBA record, rather, for most threes made in an NBA game with 29 of them.
It's funny because they missed the last 13 in a row to fucking break the
record. They had every chance to break the record and just couldn't do it. But the Knicks did not look good. Defensively, there were a bunch of open threes that we just allowed to happen to the best three-point shooting team in the NBA. And this is the result. I'm a little nervous. I cannot lie. I'm a little nervous that we aren't as good as some Knicks fans thought we were, but we also ran into the word of the week for me, an absolute wagon. The Celtics are stacked, bro. The Celtics are stacked. We knew this. I'm not going to dive into the Celtics at all because, quite frankly, they're the best team in the NBA, and we all knew this. We'll have a different question for the Celtics, but they're the best team in the NBA. As for the Knicks, I'm fearful. We're not deep. We don't really have a big man outside of Cat. And our defense might not be as great as we thought it would be. And I'm concerned. Simply put, I'm concerned. And I really don't know how to feel until we play the Indiana Pacers, which is next up. And that'll give us a better idea of where we're at.
A little bit more of a gauge. Especially, first game jitters could be,
Everyone's got to get used to each other.
Yeah.
So,
but
2 new pieces.
Yeah. two new big pieces.
Yeah.
The Knicks. I honestly haven't liked the single thing they've done this offseason, except obviously trading for Macau.
I loved the Macau.
The Macau move was awesome. But like we were talking about before this started, that team post Macau trade, keep that team, and that's the best team in the NBA.
Unfortunately, Isaiah, like, you couldn't keep him.
Yeah, I mean,
You couldn't keep him.
shout out, Big Heart getting paid, dog. He
But
got
that
paid.
changes the whole timeline.
Yeah, I mean,
You don't lose Isaiah, none of this happens. You trade for Macau, and your team is the same as last year, but with Macau Bridges. Like,
yeah, and
pain.
I was thinking about the roster, obviously after the Hartenstein signing, and just thinking about, okay, we still have depth. We still have the best bench in the NBA. Our starting five is still one of the best in the NBA in a vacuum, 1 through 5. And
Just got to swing a trade for a second.
yeah, and then we trade for Cat, which didn't make sense to me, especially for what we gave away.
Yeah.
Because the one thing about the Knicks last year that really set the tone was, one, the rebounding. They were a team that's going to kick the shit out of you on the offensive and defensive glass. And one, Cat doesn't do that. Cat is not a rebounding center. We've seen that in Minnesota. He's not accustomed.
He's a good rebounder, not a great rebounder.
Yes, he's not. But compared to what we lost.
Cat gets rebounds because he's tall.
Yes.
Yeah. Cat doesn't get rebounds because he's down there boxing
Isaiah
out.
was a dog.
Isaiah was
Yeah.
down there. Mitch was down there. Julius was down there. Fucking
Julius is a great rebounder.
Throwing
by the way.
elbows,
That shit
yeah.
matters.
Yeah.
And to put it in layman's terms, I've been saying this a whole bunch. It's a team full of dogs, and we traded for a cat.
Such a borrow team.
Yeah, I mean, this was just not the way you want to start your season. I know it's one of 82, but we've said it a few times on the podcast. This team was very specifically constructed to try and contend with that team. And it's not the fact that you lost, it's the way you guys lost, and you guys just looked like you're not even on that, you're not on that level with them. And I've been saying it after every move the Knicks make. Eventually, like, I know the GM has been pretty solid. What's his name? Leon Rose. Sorry. Leon Rose has been pretty solid, and, you know,
No, he's been great.
You guys are at a point where you should have some blind faith in him and trust him, but at some point you're going to run out of moves to make, and the roster's going to be what it is, and that's going to be the roster that, you know, you could always exchange role players at the end of the bench and things like that, but for the most part, there was questions about the core of guys, IQ, RJ Barrett, Julius Randle, you know what I mean? There was questions about the core, and at some point you were going to have to answer those questions, and then that was going to be what the roster was, and this is what the roster is. Again, there's always a few moves you can make around the edges, which I think this team would benefit from a few moves around the edges, and they'd look a lot better. But, I mean, off the rip ski, the thing I noticed in the game was Cat and Jalen Brunson were in every action off the rip.
Yep.
And as good of defenders as OG and Mikal are, if you have two bad defenders in the main action every single play, it's going to be tough to have a good defense. And
the Celtics are one of few that could do that, though.
100%. But I mean, yeah, we saw Cat improve on defense last year, but last year he was playing behind the defensive player of the year. Cat, with this group of guys, is being asked to be the rim protector, to anchor the defense, and he's just not. He's not that player, and that's why the move was so questionable at the time. Because, yeah, you guys needed a center, and yeah, on the offensive side, it looked good on paper because of his spacing ability, but like in today's NBA, you need to have good rim protection. You have to be able to trust your guys on an island and be able to have one guy slide in to help and roam and stuff. But other than that, it's not really help defense stopping the penetration. Guys kind of cakewalk to the rim in the NBA, and you got to have a guy who deters them away from shooting and is also able to block shots. And like you guys have mentioned, Isaiah Hartenstein was exactly that for this team. He was exactly that. He was so
And
good.
so
and
much more.
It just stinks so much that he's gone, and
Such emotional attachment.
this
to that, man.
just wasn't the way to replace it. And obviously the season's not over, but I mean, you're trying to win championships, and I don't want to throw out the 0% chance.
No,
but
I agree.
this team's not winning an NBA championship.
No, it's currently constructed. It's not.
After seeing the first game, no. Like, and I'm not too worried. I'm not like saying this is an overreaction. Like, oh my God, the Knicks
Oh,
aren't.
we're not gonna suck.
Yeah,
No, yeah,
you're
I
gonna be a
don't-
top
We're gonna
four
be a
seed
top
in
four
the
seed in the East.
as like a lock.
But
lock.
it's just, I feel like we're digressing from last year.
What
which,
worked?
Yeah. Where,
Deviating from what worked. Yeah.
because we only had that for a season. And not even a season. We had that for half a season.
2 years.
No, because
That
we-
was our identity the
we-
year prior.
Yeah, but then we traded for OG at the deadline. And that
True.
made our
Yeah,
team
that
that
was
much
a perfect-
better.
and
yeah,
Dante
that was perfect.
DiVincenzo was a new addition
Yes,
too
that too.
last
Yes.
year. It's not
Yep.
like he was.
And
We had an identity set in place.
all those guys fit that mold.
It was
They
Josh
fit,
Hart's first year on the team too. First full year.
First full year. Yeah.
But like we said, all those players we named, they all fit that mold. They fit like, and I'll always say this about playing in New York: you have to have a certain attitude and
Yep.
a certain, as the kids say, aura to you.
You do.
And we
People see through that quick here.
yes, Julius Randle, one of the very few players in the league that has it. He had that.
He had it, bro.
He did.
Dante
Hate him or
DiVincenzo,
love him,
another
he
one,
had
is
it.
another one that had it.
Like again, yeah. Like I don't want to keep bashing on the trade, but it's just like how does Dante have the season he has last year? You say, you know what? Yeah, we're fine with losing that guy.
As filler. He's
It's just-
filler in
Bro,
a
he
trade.
really became our second best player. Or third best
Like-
player, but second scorer.
He hit a game winner in the fucking playoffs.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like he was. There were like not even just in the playoffs. Over the course of the 100+ games you guys played last year,
How many 40-point games?
there were so many.
Oh God.
There were
was
so many
going
games
nuts.
where he was the second best player, especially given all the
Bro,
injuries
he
you guys
broke
dealt
in his
with.
first season with the Knicks. He broke the franchise record for most threes in a single season.
Yeah,
First
I mean,
season with the Knicks.
like we said it numerous times after the trade. The Knicks are gonna miss that. Julius Randle, again, love him or hate him, he had that edge to him that we've been saying for years. Does Cat have that edge? It looked like he had it last year, but again, that's Minnesota. How
That's
does
not
the
New
Lil
York.
Yachty song go?
Go like Minnesota.
Yeah, yeah.
Go like Minnesota.
Yeah, that's Minnesota. Like that's
That's-
not the Big Apple. So it's
Yeah, I mean,
it's rough for the Knicks because again, like we said, given the landscape of the Eastern Conference, they're a top 4 lock and they're in the mix for the conference finals still as
Yeah.
things stand. And when you get there, if injuries break your way and other things like that, like there's always a chance. But I mean, shit, they just like to me they fumbled a great opportunity. I don't know.
It
man.
just I felt like all off season I was just calling for one trade for a center. Like just get Walker Kessler or something like that. Obviously the Jazz asking price because Danny Ainge is just a fucking
he had 5 blocks last
he's
night.
the worst. 'Cause of
Walker
course he
Kessler.
did. He's
Did a
really
great
good
game last
basketball
night.
player. He's a great basketball player. And now the price is only going to go up. You couldn't pay 2 firsts for him. No, you just couldn't do that. But now, I mean, I firmly believe that the trade for the Knicks is you got to go get Jordan Clarkson and Walker Kessler now because we also don't have a secondary initiator. Like, we really don't have that guy.
and Dante was once again that guy.
Dante was capable of being that guy in spurts more so than anyone else on the roster currently is. And Deuce looked awesome. Deuce looked amazing. That jumper is pure. But, like, the depth that we would have had without this trade, it's tenfold. It would have changed the game. You just make a
Yeah, I
trade
mean-
for a small center, and that was it. Or even just ride it out with Precious at that point.
Yeah, and
So, yeah, I don't know.
I'll ask you guys before we move on. After the season opener, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you on the panic meter with the New York Knicks?
let me see the first week. Let me see the first 3 or 4 games just to get a little gauge. So I'm gonna say I'm at a 3 right now. Nothing too crazy, but the panic is definitely there after losing by damn near 40.
Yeah, I mean, this is a brand new team. This is Cat and McCall being brought in, and we're relying on a rookie to be a part of the rotation as well right now in Dadiet. You got to give it time, but I can't act like I'm not panicked because we got throttled by a team that we're built to compete with.
Or that was supposed to build to compete with.
Exactly. So I'm gonna say a 4 right now. But like if we lose to Indy, like get handled by Indy, this thing's gonna jump to a 7 or 8.
Especially after how bad Tyrese Halliburton looked.
Yeah, and then
he brought the boom. Yeah.
He did bring the boom late.
That was cool.
He brought the boom late.
Yeah, that was so cool, bro.
But yeah,
the only guy who can make bringing the boom not cool.
Yeah.
Literally, the only guy on the planet. Yeah, I mean,
give it time.
You guys make great points. I'll meet you guys in the middle. I'm probably at a 3.5. I stand pretty similar to where I stood with the Knicks before the season started. They're gonna be a good team. They're gonna be fine. Like they're not gonna. The season's not a wash or anything, but there's concerns.
Yeah.
There's real problems with this team and the way they were built. So
we were one of the few that criticized this trade. One of the few that like got on this couch and criticized the Knicks trade because we didn't fully believe that it actually made us better, like my team necessarily better. So yeah, I mean, I don't feel good about it, but Julius also didn't look amazing for Minnesota either. So I would like to speak a little bit on the other side of things. Like, Dante didn't look amazing in his first game. Julius didn't look amazing in his first game. The fit felt very clunky, and it almost feels like this may very well be a lose-lose trade for the Timberwolves and the Knicks. Where do you stand, Chris?
I have more hope for the Timberwolves side of things being better than I anticipated. What I mean by that is I don't think the Timberwolves will be better than the Knicks. I thought the Knicks were going to be a really good team. I thought the Timberwolves were going to take a step back. I actually feel more confident in the Timberwolves than after watching Game 1 against the Lakers. This team is still a lock. I'm gonna say top 5. They're a lock top 5 defensive unit.
Yes.
At minimum top 10.
Yeah. I thought you were gonna say top 5 seed in the West lock, which I just can't say. There's so many good teams.
I don't know if I'd give them top 5 right now, but they're top 5 defense in the NBA. Anthony Edwards is a superstar, and 100%. Any given game can will you to a victory, no matter who's on the court with him.
He's got that dog.
Right. We've seen it time and time again with Anthony Edwards, and I think Ant and Julius could have a pretty good 2-man game. Again, Julius, is a little hobbled coming into the season. He barely played preseason. Yes. So, he's a bigger dude. He's not fat, I'm saying, but he's a bigger dude that, got a guy who needs to play himself into shape. We've seen him start seasons before. Even last year, I'm pretty sure the first, I don't know exactly how long, but I'm going to say the first few weeks were not that good, and then he flipped a switch and was playing at an all-NBA level before he went down. But so we've seen Julius get off to slow starts, but I think they could have a pretty effective 2-man game. I saw a lot of Twitter people posting. There were a few times where Dante was on the court with the two of them, and Dante had both of them on both sides of him calling for the ball, and he was looking off Julius Randle and deferring to Ant, which
fair.
I mean,
it's fair, but also like you can't. Julius Randle is a guy who you can't let him get disengaged because he's not getting the ball.
That is a great point.
You brought him in to be the second best offensive player on your team, and you have to make sure he's engaged in the game if you want any chance of this working. But again, Julius is a great screener. He's for as ball dominant as he was with the Knicks, he's a good screen and roller in that sense of playing off the ball. Obviously, he's a guy who I think he's the best of his abilities when he does have the ball in his hands. But
Yes.
he's a guy who could play off the ball as a screener and roller. He could pop on the screen. I think him and Ant will develop a really nice two-man game. And I've seen a lot of people, before you go, I've seen a lot of people on the Twitter posting the picture of Montrez and Lou Will with the Clippers, with Dante and Naz Reid with the Timberwolves. And they don't have similar play styles, but I mean, these could be the two top leaders in the Sixth Man of the Year race. They're that good. They're that good. So just having that level of depth it's always, I mean, we saw it with the Knicks on opening night. Their lack of depth was very apparent. This is a team who should get some of the best bench production in the entire league, having those two guys come off the bench. Not to mention Nickeil Alexander-Walker as well. So, like, they're a deep team. So if Julius and
Jingles.
Right, Jingles was out there as the eighth man, ninth man for them last night, so 2 nights ago. So they're a deep group. I really do think there could be something there with the Julius Ant two-man game. You have Rudy Gobert, you have a top 5 offense, and you have so many guys who are just very malleable guys who just fit in. You know, Mike Conley is a pro's pro. Yes. He just gets it. He'll facilitate at a high level. He won't turn the ball over. He'll most of the time hit his open threes. And obviously he's not the greatest defender because he's older now and he's a shorter guard, but he knows how to navigate a screen. Yeah. He's great positionally. You have J-Mac, who's one of the best perimeter defenders in the association. His jump shots looked better and better year after year. And then you have this deep bench. So I think there's... Again, I'm not saying the Timberwolves are a better team than the Knicks, but I think there's more room for me to be wrong about the Timberwolves side of the trade than the Knicks side of the trade. I think the Knicks side of the trade just is what it is.
Real quick, I'll just say this. I think a couple things. I think Julius, he's too good to be on the bench, but I do think the Naz Reid in the starting lineup is just a better fit because it makes the starting 5 less clunky.
Can I chime in?
Go for it.
Don't matter who's starting. It matters who's closing game. We saw many times last year Chris Finch had no problem ending games with Naz Reid. He had no problem ending games with Naz Reid. So if you got to start Julius, I agree. There's going to be games where it makes sense to close with Naz Reid instead of Julius. There's going to be games where it makes sense to close with Julius and Naz Reid with no Rudy Gobert on the court. There might be games where it makes sense to close with Julius as the 5 and J-Mac at the 4 or something and run Ant-Man, Dante, and J-Mac or something like that. Yeah. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Yes, thank you. So they have a lot of versatility, man.
The switchability is just they could throw a lot of looks at you.
They have a lot of what they had with Cat, I feel like.
Yes.
Julius and Cat are different players, but the Knicks, it's a whole different ball game having Cat instead of Julius Randle. The Timberwolves, I think, could still do a lot of the same stuff that made them a Western Conference Finals team. And I think Julius Randle's such a talented player that, God forbid, him and Ant really figure out this two-man thing with the two of them, with the spacing they have around them and the level of defenders they have around them. If they figure it out, this team could be better than they were with Karl Anthony Towns, especially when you not only got Julius Randle, but you added, like I said, a 6th Man of the Year candidate. Again, like I said, after the Lakers game and seeing it, I feel better about the Timberwolves than I felt going into the season.
I think the biggest part of this trade that they win is future flexibility. I think if Julius isn't the best fit for them, he's a free agent after the season anyway. So if it doesn't work, you let him walk, and now you have cap space. Yeah. And especially the extension that they just signed with Rudy,
it's a steal.
Totally a fair deal after being one of the more overpaid guys in the league.
It's making like 33 a year, 30, yeah,
34 a year.
Given what all these guys got with their rookie extensions 2 days ago, yes. I mean, that's for the 4-time defensive player of the year. Like, as much as I love to bash on Rudy, given what he was just making, that's a steal of a contract.
It's a massive steal of a deal.
I'll always bash on Rudy.
So.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the Timberwolves?
What are your thoughts on the Timberwolves side of the trade and where they're at?
You guys covered a lot. I really like the fact that they can throw so many lineups out there at you, and the fact that I like how you touched on the fact that it's pretty much the same exact game out there for the Timberwolves, and it's a completely different game for the Knicks. But on the Timberwolves side, it's the same exact game. You just get more explosiveness. Because we seen when Dante can get hot, we seen he's arguably the best shooter in the league.
He really
And a
that's
court
the
full of all-stars,
craziest
he
part.
could be the best
yes.
player on the court.
Like
100%.
we've seen him go nuclear and hit 5-6 shots in a row and go on just the craziest of runs. Julius is the same way. Julius is one of those guys that finds the stroke early in the season. He can keep that going, and we've seen what he could do. He's multiple-time All-NBA player. Carried the Knicks to the playoffs, I don't know. It's just that I like the Timberwolves team a little bit more, looking at it from a roster standpoint than looking at the Knicks. So,
yeah, I think they gave themselves multiple avenues. That's the big difference here.
Yeah.
The Knicks kind of pigeonholed themselves into this is it.
Right.
This is the move. The Timberwolves kind of said, okay, we can make this move. We'll keep Dante. We got a first-round pick, and we could let Julius walk if it doesn't work. So, yeah, it's definitely an interesting conversation here. But
Yeah, I said, I love to bash on the Timberwolves because they have Rudy, but given what we saw last year, and what I saw the other night, I really do believe there's no reason to think they could get right back to where they were last year, if not make it further.
I don't know because, like
the
I
West
said,
is tough, but I think
it's just a clunky fit. It depends on how good is Randall shooting throughout the season, and I think that matters a lot.
We saw them win games with Cat was good for them last year, but Cat had games where he'd look. It's Karl
But that's
Anthony
fine.
Towns.
But the thing is, with the defense, you always do know there's the threat of him getting hot. Cat is one of the best shooters in the league. But it's different.
He's obviously not a Cat level shooter, but Julius, in terms of being a heat stroke type of guy, like a heat check type of guy, when Julius is hot,
I agree, but a defense is definitely more willing to leave a Julius Randle open than a Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah, but Julius Randle is also so much better at getting to the basket than Karl Anthony Towns is. Fact. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He gives them something so different. And again, if he's not hitting the shot and he's disengaged, fine. Naz Reid, get out there, buddy. You know what I mean? There's so much. The way the Knicks' depth is set up, Karl Anthony Towns can't have bad games in big moments.
no.
Karl Anthony Towns has a bad
game.
your chances of winning go down significantly.
Yes.
The Timberwolves, not just could win games, the Timberwolves could beat good teams even if Julius Randle doesn't have a good game. Obviously, to do the big thing, you're going to need Julius to be playing great, 100%. But I think there's no reason to not believe that it's easily in the range of outcomes that this team could be just where they were last year or right back there. Oh, or better than that, my bad. But so yeah,
I'm gonna bring us back. We talked about the Knicks, and we did not speak about the team that dominated the Knicks. And this doesn't need to be a crazy long conversation, but I am curious as to whether we feel that the Boston Celtics and Missoula ball, as it's being coined now, is bad for basketball. Because I've seen this making the rounds on Twitter. I've seen this making the rounds in some other sports analyst shows and stuff like that. So I'm very curious. How do we feel? Do we think that the three-point revolution, for a second time now, is bad for basketball? Ortiz, I'll let you start.
Well, if we're going to take that Knicks game as just a little sample size, if a team is making it very apparent that they're going to nonstop shoot the three ball, and you're going to continue to give them open looks, I can't see a reason why it doesn't work.
Yeah.
They
generate such good shots, though, in the flow of the offense, too.
Of course. I mean, there's no dead weight anywhere out there on the offensive side or defensive side of the basketball. It's a very well-constructed team, and I just think it's just a matter of roster.
When it comes to the Missouri, are on, as much as we love to hate them, obviously you guys as Knicks fans, but when the Celtics are on, it's must-watch television. It is.
JT opened that game with 6 threes.
Yeah.
In the first.
I mean, what a freaking statement, bro.
What
a statement, dude.
Man said, y'all didn't want to play me in the Olympics. Okay, fine.
His 30 in the first half, New York.
Okay.
Yeah,
fine.
What a statement by him. Yeah, I mean, I think Jason Timpf was who blew up on Twitter for asking this question, but it is like you mentioned, Ortiz, if they're gonna not guard the three on a team that has potential to be the best 3-point shooting team of all time, like they probably were last year by the numbers. Obviously, the Warriors exist, but probably pretty close in terms of any volume and efficiency stats. They're right up there with them. If you're going to leave them open, then why wouldn't they take them?
Especially if you're taking, they took, 62?
Yeah.
62 threes,
Yeah.
which is, I can't believe that. But if you're going to hit 29 of them and then miss your last 13 in a row, I'm taking those odds. I'm taking those shooting splits every single game.
And it's not like they have bad 3-point shooters anywhere. Like,
No.
literally not a single one in their rotation. It is unfathomable.
They just got unlucky.
I don't
last
think they have a bad shooter on their roster.
Yeah, they might
I
not.
think anyone that they'd have to throw out there is more than capable. They don't have a non-shooter on their entire roster.
Like, you look at last season and their entire starting lineup, Drew Holiday over 40%. I mean, Jalen at like 36, 37, Jason, same thing. And then you have Derek White, who's also 40%, and Al Horford, who's also 40%. And then you go to the bench and it's shooter.
Yeah.
And Chris
Stops. Like,
Yeah.
He could shoot from anywhere.
it's not. So my thing is this. It's not bad for basketball because Missoula ball only applies to the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, you can't.
Nobody else could do this.
Yeah, you can't take this and go bring it to another team and start it right away. It's something you need to build from the ground up and something you need to
Vision.
Yeah, something you need to instill into everyone that joins your roster year in, year out is you're going to be shooting the basketball.
You better become good at it.
If you shoot the ball well, you'll play.
Yep.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
So it's not bad for basketball.
Teams got to catch up.
Because
Exactly.
I also say this, like, we all thought that throwing the football in the NFL was going to be like the biggest thing and they were going to throw 40 times, 50 times a game. And what are we seeing this year increasingly? The run game has just become super prevalent once again. Like, I think there's ebbs and flows with everything, and it's roster construction more so than anything else. So what they could do with the Celtics is not something, as I said, that every single team can do. So I think that's super important to note, and I think people need to realize, like, Missoula ball's not bad for basketball because you just can't replicate it. So that's where I stand.
Yeah, I felt the same way about the Warriors back in the day. It's silly to say that good basketball is bad for basketball. The rest of the league just needs to be better. Like, obviously, it stunk that KD went there, but at the end of the day, it was good. Like,
it comes down to two things.
If you didn't enjoy watching the Warriors with KD, you don't like basketball.
Yep.
Yeah, because that was basketball's finest. That was
Yeah.
3-4 players at the peak of their primes.
Yeah, exactly. So, moving on from that, I think the last thing is,
yep.
Yeah. So, like Matt mentioned in the intro, we have a special guest named Ortiz here. Ortiz was here a little over a year ago before last season started. The day of the Dame Giannis trade, we did a ranking the top 5 duos in the NBA. So again, a year later, a season later, with everything we know now, we are going to be ranking the top 5 duos in the NBA.
One of the final pods at Chris's house.
Yeah, before my freaking room flooded.
Pods ever at Chris's house.
Yeah.
All right. Ortiz, go ahead.
Go from 5 to 1.
So at my 5, I have Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. At my 4, I have Giannis and Damian Lillard. At my 3, I have Tatum and Brown. At my 2, I have Luka and Kyrie. And my 1 is LeBron James and Anthony Davis. I meant that as Bronny James, not the old guy, the younger one.
All right. This sucks because I feel like after 5, everything can be interchanged. At number 5, I have Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. I agree with you. That's the clear-cut 5th, I think, of all these options, in my personal opinion. After that, I have Luka and Kyrie. Unfortunately, at number 4, obviously they could be so much higher, but I had to put them at number 4. At number 3, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, the reigning defending duo that have won the title. At number 2, I have Anthony Davis and LeBron James. And at number 1, we've been talking about this man having a vengeance. I really do think this is going to click to the ultimate extent this year, and that is Giannis and Damian Lillard.
Wow.
Yeah, it's tough because they didn't exactly look great together last year.
But it was a multi. I feel like that's a multi-year thing,
And it's also their coach sucked. Like their coach sucked. Call it what it is. Doc Rivers, as much as we may hate on him, definitely a better coach than Adrian Griffin, I would like to think. So yeah, the top four could just be interchanged in whatever way you feel, but.
Wow,
So
it's hard to have them at one right now.
Yeah, having them
It
one.
is. It definitely is. LeBron and AD were hard to put at 2. And look, like I said, Luka and Kyrie, I had them at 2, and then I switched it and started moving them down. So I'm all over the place with my list.
Yeah, so my number 5, after hearing you guys, you make a good point. At number 5, I have KD and Book. They just are the clear 5th duo out of this group. If they win in the playoffs, they could move up to as high as number 1. These are easily, any given night could be 2 top 10 players in the entire association. It's that simple with them. At 4, this is where I'm going to put Giannis and Dame. Again, Giannis could be the best player in the world if he wants to, and Damian Lillard could play at a top 10 level.
He looked great.
He looked calm. I'm not that moved by beating Tyrese Maxey. He shot Halloween. It was spooky. Bro's getting ready for the big day. So I'm not that moved yet. Again, I'm high on the Bucks this year, but I'm not gonna be moved by that game. At number 3, it pains me to do this. Oh, Sleazy's probably gonna be so happy hearing this, but at number 3, I have Luka and Kyrie.
Wow.
These other duos are just championship duos, and I mean, Luka wasn't that great in the finals, but Kyrie, when you needed him most, folded like a lawn chair.
Yep.
And I know he clearly has some psychological thing when he's playing the Celtics, so hopefully they could get back to the finals and not have to see the Celtics, and maybe then they'll get over the hump. But the way the Celtics looked the other day, it doesn't look like that's likely. So.
No, it does not.
So at number 2, I just have to put Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And when I was making my list, the biggest thing that made me have these guys as high as number 2 was it's not a Tatum thing. It's the way Jaylen Brown pulled his weight in terms of the duo. I mean, I spoke about it when it happened. That was some of the best one-on-one defense I've seen on Luka Doncic probably throughout the course of the entirety of last season. He really got in his head, man. Like he got back to that all-NBA level defense form while not really taking a dip offensively. He was the Eastern Conference Finals MVP and the Finals MVP for a reason. Not to say he's a better basketball player than Jason Tatum, but he played better than him. I really do firmly believe that. I know Jason Tatum had a great closeout game in the finals. I really do believe Jaylen Brown had a better playoff run than Jason Tatum. So he really held his end of the bargain, and that was a big influence for me in making my list. And number 1, man, come on, he's the GOAT. He's the GOAT. It's LeBron and Anthony Davis. When these 2 guys are on the court and when they're locked in and when they hopefully have competent coaching, there's no reason they shouldn't be the best duo in the NBA. And there's just no reason not to believe it. You know what I mean? It's fucking LeBron James. It's LeBron James. I trust that man with my life. I rock with the Lakers, man. They look good, bro.
Wow.
JJ is just...
He is a fucking basketball god.
It's not even that he's a basketball god. It's when you put him next to Darvin Ham, he's a basketball
You're
god.
Right,
I don't know how good of a coach he is, but compared to Darvin Ham,
I've
it's
seen
night and
so
day.
many things on Twitter circling over the last couple days of just JJ Redick being like brilliant with basketball.
Well, yeah, we knew JJ Redick was a brilliant mind. I think any concern anyone had with JJ was how he would be a leader of these dudes when like he was colleagues with these guys.
Apparently he's got a fucking edge to him.
Yeah, everything. He's so clearly in the interviews that I've seen, he's so clearly not in podcast mode anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's talking like a completely different person.
So
Not
like a head coach.
not in a bad way or anything, but he's just like talking. Yeah, exactly. He's talking like a coach. So
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
You usually don't see that from first-year coaches when they're in interviews. He's answering questions like he's done this before because he has. He has sat up there and answered all these stupid
also-
questions that he's heard a million times.
This is a big difference. He's media trained too.
Yeah.
Like, I hate to put it like that.
no, he is.
But that's a
point.
real thing.
Yeah.
Like he's very media trained, which matters. He did this. He's been in this. He was commentating. So yeah, JJ, they may have found the next.
Yeah.
The next.
Shout out to Dalton Connect, my freaking boy, bro. My
Yo,
steal of the
Who
draft.
you guys got for the NBA Cup?
Shit is such a joke, bro.
I'm gonna go with the
Such a
Bucks.
joke.
I'm gonna fear the deer for the NBA Cup.
So funny enough, I watched I was watching part
The
of
Lakers are
the
gonna
documentary that they did on the starting five, that starting
Oh,
five
yeah.
doc, and so like all the players that were asked basically said like they had no fucking clue like what it entailed, what it was about, and stuff like that. And then it gets to Domantas Sabonis, and he goes, "I don't understand what's so hard to understand, like to comprehend." He's like, I understood it the second I heard about it. And then I think like they asked him like, do you think that's because like you're a fan of soccer and stuff? And he's like, yeah.
yeah, obviously.
He's like, I watch
100%.
soccer. Like he's like, I love that stuff.
It was
He's like, I
it was
understand
cool last
Yeah.
year. It was just
It was an interesting
it's
thing.
never gonna have like these super high stakes.
Yeah.
that
There's no
maybe,
aura.
Yeah, simply because
To
it
the
is in the
cup.
regular season.
We were locked in though. You know what I mean? Like the Lakers
courts are cool.
Pelicans playing in the Cup finals. Like we were locked into that shit because the Pacers went on a run. Like people
They
were
did.
having serious conversations about the Pacers. That's a
Hey, it
that's
foreshadowed.
Yeah, exactly. It foreshadowed for sure, and that's a small market team that got more media attention than they would have typically gotten in November. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I thought it was just I don't think it was.
No, yeah, it was definitely.
I don't think it was a problem at all for anyone,
definitely
which is
not.
just like they could keep working on it and improving it. I thought it was cool.
And
So
especially because the games still counted for the regular season. It wasn't like, oh yeah, so in the middle of your season we're gonna take a 2-week break and do this cup.
yeah,
No, it was these games still count towards the regular season. You guys are still playing towards the grand scheme of the playoffs. You know,
yeah.
Yep.
I don't know. It was cool because it was only what was it? Tuesday and Fridays were
The
Cup
Cup
games.
games, yeah.
So
Yep.
it was like when you tuned into the NBA. Excuse me. When you tuned into the NBA on Tuesday and Friday, you were checking the NBA. I know I was checking the Cup
cups, yeah.
standings to see who was where. So it had an extra element. It was pretty cool. But
because of that fucking thing, the Knicks ended up playing with the Bucks and the Celtics both 5 times last year.
did you guys see the Knicks court? I saw it on Twitter
Oh, did
today.
they
I'm pretty
show
sure
it?
it got leaked. I'll find it right now if someone wants to talk for a sec.
But yeah, no, it's cool. It's a good concept. I like it, but you know, how much can I really care?
Pretty ugly.
it's-
I don't like it.
It's okay.
Shorties.
It's okay. I don't dislike it. But I don't love it.
Okay, yeah, it is
I mean,
what
it's
it is.
yeah, exactly. It's there.
Thank God we'll only be seeing it Tuesdays and Fridays. At home
Yeah.
games.
Maybe it looks good with the players on it though. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I felt the same way about the City jerseys when we were looking at those. We saw the Lakers jersey with no one wearing it and no number, and then we saw LeBron in it, and it changed
but-
everyone's
Yeah,
opinion.
but LeBron looks good in everything.
Yeah, that's our
LeBron looks
king.
good in everything.
You
So.
are my
He is
sunshine.
my sunshine.
All right.
That's how I feel about Mookie Betts sometimes too. When I would play the show,
Man, I don't.
and
wanna hear that.
and I have Mookie Betts. When I would take my bats at Mookie Betts, I'd sing that song in my head. Because Mookie Betts sometimes can be my sunshine.
I hate the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Please be sure to leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, follow us on all of our socials. Before we end this, Ortiz, thank you very much for coming on the pod. Appreciate
Anytime.
your time,
It was
man.
always a pleasure.
Happy to have you back. You may see more of Ortiz in the near future. We'll see what happens there. Anyways, stay tuned. A lot of good stuff coming. And with that,
Ball
Ball game,
game.
ball game, ball game, ball game, ball game, ball game, ball game.